Imagine a man who could paint like a master, design flying machines centuries before airplanes, and study the human body with the curiosity of scientists. Leonardo da Vinci was not just a painter. He was an inventor, an engineer, a musician, and a dreamer. But how did one man achieve so much? And what was the secret behind his genius? Stay with me as we explore his extraordinary life. And at the same time, you will learn English through stories. Leonardo da Vinci was born on April 15, 1452, in the small town of Vinci, Italy. His full name was Leonardo di Ser Piero da Vinci, which means Leonardo, son of Piero from Vinci. His father, Piero, was a wealthy notary, a person who certifies legal documents. But his mother, Caterina, was a simple peasant, a poor farmer. Leonardo was born out of wedlock when parents are not married, which meant he could never inherit his father's wealth or become a notary like him. But this would turn out to be a blessing in disguise, something that seems bad at first but brings good results. Since Leonardo was not allowed to study in formal schools like other rich children, he spent most of his time exploring nature. He would watch birds fly, study the way water moved, and observe animals with deep curiosity. His notebooks from later years show sketches, drawings of birds' wings, water waves, and even the bones of animals. This habit of observing everything around him would shape his future as an artist and scientist. At the age of 14, his father noticed Leonardo's talent for drawing and sent him to Florence, the city of art and culture, to train under a famous artist named Andrea del Verrocchio. This was the best decision for young Leonardo. Verrocchio was not just a painter. He was a sculptor, someone who makes statues, an engineer, and a goldsmith, a person who makes things out of gold. In his workshop, Leonardo learned everything, from mixing colors to designing machines. One day, Verrocchio was working on a painting of John the Baptist and asked Leonardo to paint a small angel in the background. When the painting was finished, something incredible happened. Leonardo's angel was so beautifully painted that it made Verrocchio's work look dull in comparison. The legend says that after seeing this, Verrocchio decided never to paint again because the student had surpassed, gone beyond him. But Leonardo was not just a painter. His mind was always full of ideas, and he loved solving problems. He designed machines that were centuries ahead of his time. He sketched plans for a flying machine, a tank, and even an early version of the bicycle. However, most of his inventions were never built because the technology of his time was not advanced enough. By the age of 30, Leonardo wanted bigger opportunities. He left Florence and moved to Milan, where he worked for Duke Ludovico Sforza. Here, he painted The Last Supper, one of the most famous paintings in the world. This painting captures the exact moment when Jesus tells his disciples, followers, that one of them will betray him. The expressions, facial emotions of each disciple tell a story of shock, sadness, and disbelief. However, Leonardo was a slow painter. Unlike other artists who finished their work quickly, he took years to complete a single painting because he wanted it to be perfect. Sometimes he would stare at his work for hours, making tiny changes that no one else would even notice. Because of this, he left many paintings unfinished, including a second version of the Adoration of the Magi. Apart from painting, Leonardo was deeply interested in the human body. He would secretly study dead bodies to understand how muscles and bones worked. He made over 240 detailed drawings of the human anatomy, which were so accurate that doctors still admire them today. He was the first to draw the inside of a heart correctly, and even wrote about how blood flows through the body centuries before modern medicine proved it. Despite his genius, Leonardo often felt frustrated. Many of his ideas remained on paper because people of his time did not understand them. He was also easily distracted. He would start one project, then move to another, leaving many of his works unfinished. But this was because his mind was always thinking, always creating. Leonardo spent the last years of his life in France under the protection of King Francis I, who admired him greatly. The king gave him a beautiful home, Clauselus, where Leonardo continued working until his final days. It is said that Leonardo died in the arms of the king on May 2nd, 1519. Though this story is romantic, historians believe it is more of a legend than a fact. Even after his death, Leonardo's work continued to inspire the world. His notebooks, filled with ideas and inventions, show that he was not just an artist, but a thinker far ahead of his time. His famous painting, Mona Lisa, became the most recognized artwork in history, with her mysterious smile puzzling confusing people for centuries. So, what can we learn from Leonardo da Vinci's life? First, curiosity is the key to greatness. Leonardo never stopped learning, and that made him a master in many fields. Second, it's okay to be different. Leonardo was an illegitimate child who couldn't go to school, yet he became one of the greatest minds in history. And finally, our ideas have the power to change the future, even if people don't understand them today. If you ever feel like your dreams are too big or your ideas are too different, just remember Leonardo. Keep learning, keep creating, and who knows? Maybe one day, the world will look at your work with the same admiration we have for him. Leonardo da Vinci's mind was a universe of ideas. He was not just an artist, but an architect, an engineer, and a scientist. His notebooks contain thousands of pages filled with inventions, discoveries, and sketches of things that would only be built centuries later. But how did he think so differently from others? One of Leonardo's secrets was his ability to connect different fields of knowledge. He believed that everything in nature was connected, and by studying one thing, he could understand another. For example, he studied the way water flowed in rivers and applied that knowledge to his paintings to create realistic movements in fabric and hair. He observed the way birds flapped their wings and used that to design flying machines. He was always asking questions, always searching for answers. Leonardo's curiosity also led him to study human emotions. His paintings were different because they captured real expressions and feelings. If you look at the Mona Lisa, you will notice something strange. Is she smiling or is she serious? That mystery is what makes her so fascinating. Leonardo used a technique called sfumato, which means soft or smoky in Italian. Instead of drawing hard lines, he blended colors and shadows, making the painting look more natural. This was a revolutionary idea at that time. But Leonardo was not a man who lived in luxury. Despite working for kings and dukes, he often struggled with money. He was famous, but he did not sell many paintings. He was more interested in exploring new ideas and in making a fortune. Many of his inventions, like the parachute and the armored vehicle, were never built because the materials or technology did not exist yet. But today, when scientists test his designs, they find that most of them would have worked perfectly. One of Leonardo's most ambitious projects was a giant bronze statue of a horse for the Duke of Milan. It was supposed to be the largest statue in the world. He spent years designing it, but before it could be completed, a war broke out. The bronze that was meant for the statue was taken to make weapons, and Leonardo's dream was never realized. However, centuries later, artists used his designs to build the statue, proving that his ideas were never truly lost. As Leonardo grew older, he continued to explore new fields. He wrote about the movement of water, the formation of mountains, and even theories about fossils. At a time when most people believed the Earth was only a few thousand years old, Leonardo suggested that it was much older. He studied the layers of rocks and fossils and realized that the land had once been covered by the sea. This was an idea that would later be confirmed by geologists. Leonardo was also fascinated by the human body. His anatomical studies were so detailed that they are still admired by doctors today. He dissected more than 30 human bodies to understand how muscles, bones, and organs worked. He even made one of the first scientific studies of the human brain. He believed that the brain, not the heart, was the center of thought and emotions, an idea that was far ahead of his time. But Leonardo was not just a man of science. He loved music, philosophy, and even jokes. He was known for his wit and charm, and people enjoyed his company. Despite his incredible mind, he remained humble, always seeing himself as a student rather than a master. In 1516, Leonardo moved to France, invited by King Francis I, who admired him deeply. The king gave him a comfortable home near his castle, where Leonardo spent his final years working on his ideas and sketches. Some say that Leonardo's last words were about how he felt he had not done enough in his life. This is ironic because even today, the world still studies his work, trying to understand the full depth of his genius. Leonardo da Vinci died on May 2nd, 1519, but his legacy lives on. His notebooks continue to inspire scientists. His paintings remain among the most valuable in the world, and his ideas continue to shape our understanding of art, engineering, and science. He proved that curiosity, creativity, and a passion for learning can change the world. If there is one lesson to take from Leonardo's life, it is this: never stop being curious. The world is full of mysteries, and those who ask questions, explore, and imagine new possibilities are the ones who shape the future. Leonardo was not just a man of his time. He was a man of all time. So, the next time you see a bird in the sky, a ripple in the water, or a painting in a museum, remember Leonardo da Vinci. And remember that just like him, you have the power to think, to dream, and to create something that could change the world.